In the social pyramid, scribes were the level below priests. Scribes were Egypt's official writers and record keepers. They were highly respected and well paid. Most scribes worked for the government, others worked for priests or nobles. Only men were allowed to be scribes. They came from all classes of society. Becoming a scribe was one of the few ways that men could raise above their parents' social class. Boys who wanted to become scribes had to attend scribe school. The schools were run by priests. Most students came from artisan or merchant families. Very few boys came from the peasant class. Schooling started around the age of 5. Students typically spent 12 years or more learning hieroglyphics, the system used in the Egyptian system of writing. This writing system was quite complicated. Most students first mastered a simpler form of writing and then worked their way up to hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics was a complicated form of picture writing with over 700 characteristics. It was used in formal writing documents. Every scribe used the same tools. For a pen, a scribe used finely sharpened reeds. For paper, he used a sheet of papyrus laid on a writing tablet. The tablets were made of wood or stone. A scribe carried his tools with him wherever he traveled. This paper was a remarkable Egyptian invention. The Egyptians made paper by first cutting the inner part of the papyrus plant into strips. Then, these strips were soaked in water for several days until they were soft. The soft strips were laid out in a crisscross pattern, and then pressed between 2 sheets of cloth until all the water was absorbed. Finally, the papyrus strips were pressed one more time to form a sheet of paper. The Rosetta Stone was very important. It had 3 different languages on it: Ancient Greek, hieroglyphics, and an earlier form of Egyptian script. People who knew Ancient Greek could decipher the other writing. The Rosetta Stone was found by men working for Napoleon. It is now held in the British Museum. The Egyptians produced many religious writings, such as mythology, ritual, magical texts, hymns, prayers, and funerary texts. Mythology was the gods' action and role in nature. Ritual and magical text was instructions on how to perform a ritual. A magical text was to describe a ritual part of spells used for specific goals. Hymns and prayers were written in forms of poetry. Prayers addressed a god in a more personal way, asking for blessings, help, or forgiveness.
Peasants are the lowest level. They are farmers, so they grow crops. The wives plant the seeds. The biggest crops they have were wheat and barley. Also, peasants rarely eat meat. Their houses were made out of mud bricks, which are okay. If they had broad crops, they would be punished. So farmers spent most of their life working and were only allowed to gather up the leftovers. The daily diet is very important for the peasants. It is really important for them because if they didn't have the food that they can afford, they would starve to death. The major crops are wheat and barley to make bread and beer. Peasants mostly live on bread, vegetables, and fish. The rich people ate geese, duck, and onions and had a lot of other foods. So that proves that peasants had very little choice of food compared to the rich people. The peasants ate a lot of bread, and the rich people ate a lot of varieties like meat and geese. The peasants' families do a lot of things together. The boys work in the fields while learning how to farm. The girls help their mothers grind grain, make meals, and weave clothes. Instead of people pulling heavy stuff, they make oxes and donkeys do all the heavy work. The boys also earn a living by fishing. So the boys did the farming because they would grow up to be much stronger than the girls. The girls did Maketra believed in the afterlife. Maketra was a chancellor. They have a lot of things that support him in the afterlife, like a carpenter shop just for Maketra. Also, they built houses, shops, and a lot more things for Maketra. The artifact counting cows is peasants plus cows to support Maketra in the afterlife. There is also another model of his tomb when he is in the funerary.
Dear people of the future, we have come from the past and would like to inform you, in a few months, your world will be destroyed. However, we have created a time machine that allows you to travel back to ancient Egypt time to save your lives. Things are very different in ancient Egypt. Therefore, we will give you some information about your new home. One thing that you need to know is that there are ranks in ancient Egypt society. The most important people in ancient Egypt are the pharaohs. They are defined kings that rule a specific part of Egypt. After the pharaoh comes the nobles. The nobles are a group of people that have the most money and power after the pharaohs. There are three types of nobles: viziers, chiefs, treasurer, and general of armies. Nobles that are viziers advise the pharaoh and carry out his commands, and are the chief judge of the land. The chief treasurer oversees government's wealth. Finally, the pharaoh's top military commander in Egypt was the general of armies. Nobles lived very luxurious lives and lived in big houses, with people waiting on them hand and foot. Located at the bottom of the social pyramid are peasants. The peasants class is the least paid in all of Egypt and are considered unskilled laborers. I myself am a wealthy, educated noble. I am going to tell you about some sites you will see in ancient Egypt, and most of them were created in honor of our pharaoh. In the ancient Egypt, there were many beautiful and interesting attractions that were built in order to show the power that each pharaoh held. One of them happens to be the pyramids of Giza. There are three pyramids, which are the largest structures in ancient times, and until the 19th century, they were the tallest structures in the world. There is an estimate of 20,000 to 30,000 workers to build the pyramids. It took over 80 years. The pyramids are built out of granite and limestone, and each pyramid consists of over 2 million blocks, with each block weighing over 2.2 tons. Not to mention the sides of the pyramids are 230 meters wide. The buildings of the pyramids during the ancient time is amazing accomplishment. Other than the pyramids, there are many more fascinating sights to see, like Sennacherib's White Chapel. White Chapel, or another name for the chapel, is the Jubilee Chapel of Sennacherib I. This chapel was built Sennacherib's first Jubilee, which is when a pharaoh has ruled for 30 years. Sennacherib ruled from 1971 to 1926 BCE. In 1927 CE, dismantled pieces were found in the third pylon of the main temple, which was construction in time of Amahas III. Between 1927 and 1930 CE, all the pieces were removed. The chapel is made out of hard white rock called alabaster. There are many more religious buildings. Hatshepsut's Monumental Temple is one. In the mid-19th century, Hatshepsut's Monumental Temple was found and buried in sand. To this day, it is being restored. In Hatshepsut's temple, there are 9 chambers or sections. The first one is the lower court, which has some artifacts that still survive, but most have rotted. Next is the Anubis Chapel, which has many gods, but no remains of Hatshepsut. Another chamber is the birth colonnade, a place-like hospital that Hatshepsut was born in. Punkalade is a city that has many precious goods, which comes after the birth colonnade. Half of chapel is the next chamber. It has many columns, but most of them are broken. Last but not least is the upper court, where Hatshepsut was put in after her death. There are other interesting places to learn about in ancient Egypt, like Karnak.